All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk to you about our Appian journey with the Container Deposit Scheme for Visy. So I'm now the General Manager of Container Deposit Scheme. So we have one and we do have the app, which is great. I'll talk you through it, but obviously my background is operational management stuff, so I won't be right in the weeds of the technology. I am an accountant, so I'll try and make this as interesting as possible, but it should be better than a budget presentation. So just a brief overview of what we'll go through today. So I'll very quickly touch on who is Visy, what do we do, why is the Container Deposit Scheme important to us, what is the Container Deposit Scheme and the application requirements that we needed, and why did we bring Appian to the table. Looked at the decision criteria for how we selected Appian, what happened with the project, and just a couple of screen grabs of the app and how we've landed. So Visy Industries, effectively we're a packaging company. We're B2B, so we sell a lot of different types of packaging, effectively primary packaging, which is the first lot of packaging on a good. So there's PET and HDPE bottles, so PET is soft drink and water predominantly. HDPE is your milk. We have beverage cans, which is my personal favourite beer, and also soft drink. Food cans, peaches, tomatoes, dog food, steel-based cans, and then we also do glass bottles and jars, which are all the different colour streams. The other part of the business is the secondary packaging, which is around paper and fibre. So we run paper mills all around the country. So there's two basic types of them. The first one is recycling mills, which use recycled fibre, and the second one's use kraft, which is just a fancy word for wood chips, and we need that just to maintain the strength of the packaging. That then goes on to our box plants where it gets turned into corrugated cardboard and into boxes, which can be just a slab box for, again, my personal favourite beer, or you can have point of sale type solutions, Energizer packets at the checkout, etc., and shelf-ready packaging. And I think the critical thing that sort of sets us apart is that all of these products have a heavy focus on remanufacture and reusing existing packaging. And if we think about where does that come from, most of it is consumed by us, the consumer. What do we do with it for the most part? We put it in our yellow lidded bin. So what's in the yellow lidded bin? About half of it's paper and cardboard. So nationally we do about 1.2 million tonnes of paper and cardboard that goes back into our mills. Glass, so again, glass is very heavy based off the product. It's about 30% of the bin. So we'll do about 400,000 tonnes of glass, which goes back into new bottles and jars, and that's infinitely recyclable. And we have a publicly stated mandate to try and get that recycled content up to 70%. We've made recent investments into a plastics remanufacturing facility that can recover both PET and HDPE. There's about 50,000 tonnes per annum that we process out of our New South Wales facility. And then the last products are the metals, which is the steel and the aluminium cans. So those ones are generally done by third parties. The steel in Australia and the aluminium will go offshore, but it does come back and get made back into new cans at our facility. So I work for Visy Recycling. Once we have that material, so as we've touched on, the yellow lidded bin is kind of a key source of that material. But if you think about what we do, we throw it all in the bin, it's all jumbled up, it goes in a truck, it gets squished. We need to unscramble that egg, which is what our plants do. When we unscramble it, it comes into the different product streams. As we've touched on the previous slide, the key difference here is that the glass is mixed, so when it goes in the truck, it gets broken, it's all compacted up, and then it has to go off to another plant to be beneficiated, which again is a fancy word for saying gets sorted into the different colour streams before it goes to the furnace to be resmelted. Again, if you think about it, the Container Deposit Scheme is single-serve beverages. A lot of it is glass, so we have quite a heavy interest in being able to recover the containers that are no longer in the curbside stream, but then go through the Container Deposit Scheme, which is kind of why we're interested on it. So that gets us so far. We've got about 50% market share of the curbside business, but that's not enough to get to our 1.2 million tonnes of paper. So we run another division of our business which provides services. To a large extent, that's to retailers, supermarkets, Amazon, SMEs, a whole range of different businesses where we provide bins and trucks and services. There's a whole lot of data and systems that go into the background for that as well. And then the last part is we'll still purchase material from our competitors who basically do the same things that we do, but they don't have the remanufacturing capability, so we'll take some of their excess material and remanufacture it in Australia. So I thought it was appropriate to use a post-it note when we're talking about our Appian experience, because I think we went through very, very, very many post-it notes on our journey with them. But we've had, I think it's just shy of 10 years, or should probably have checked the exact date, but we've been working with Appian for a long time over a number of different applications. The first one, when we engaged SMEs in our servicing business, we had a lot of issues with getting ABN numbers right, service frequencies, contracts all done in the field. So we had a tablet app which verifies and checks all that. ABN's verified, the pricing, the service model, the days of service that were available, and then the digital sign-off could all be done on the tablet in the field, which reduced all the administration and particularly the downstream problems where we had issues with data integrity. The second one is our run sheet app. So again, that's a fancy word for how we manage our trucks. So we've created our own bespoke app, which will then allow the jobs to be sent to a service provider. They can allocate those tasks between the vehicles that are on the road. They mark off the job as complete. It tracks GPS stamps. It can track service outcomes, photos, driver comments. It's a key part of how we manage our business. Then when we purchase the material from other parties, we've got a supply contract app. So if we've purchased 1,000 tonnes, we want to get 1,000 tonnes. So it integrates with our weigh bridges and makes sure that we've got a purchase agreement, and then it measures what we've received against what we've wanted to receive and make sure we manage it. And the last part is the quality app, which means that when we tip it out in the yard, there's an ability for a grader to have a look at it and make sure the quality is appropriate and downgrade as necessary. It's all done through the app. So the container deposit scheme. So again, another post-it note, we have been awarded. So it kicked off on the 1st of November 2023. It's effectively a 10-cent deposit on a single serve container. So if you're in Queensland, that includes a bottle of wine, so don't judge. The schemes have been around for a while. So in South Australia, it's a very people-based scheme. It's got the Scouts and it's very human-based. That's been around since the 70s. The more modern schemes, which rely on technology and machines and the like, they've been in New South Wales, Queensland and WA from 2017, 2018 and 2020 respectively. So Victoria's kind of the last big state to get online with it. So we were successful with winning basically a third of the state, which it's sort of the north-ish. It's not the best geographic determinator, but that's what we've got. And then the commodities, as we touched on, are the glass, aluminium, plastic, and liquid paperboard, which is the Tetra Paks with up and goes and the like. And that's come out of the curbside bin, which is where it sort of cannibalised our other business, which is why it's interesting to Visy to maintain a presence in the scheme. And the other benefits of it are it also comes out of the street litter bins, the red littered bin at home if your recycling bin's full, and most importantly, it comes out of litter in the waterways. So our contract with the government requires us to provide a redemption point network, which has a few different types of sites. The first 2 dot points on there are face-to-face sites. So that there's a depot, which is a site that exists purely for the scheme and only for the scheme. They'll be in industrial or commercial areas. They'll sort high volumes of containers. They'll have some machinery and the like there. And then an over-the-counter will be where it's an ancillary service to an existing business. So there'll be places like newsagents, grocers, service stations, nurseries, egg farms, you name it. We've got all sorts of different types of sites in there. Fundamentally, they're a face-to-face site. They need an ability to report what they've recovered. They have a requirement to pay cash to the consumer, or the consumer similarly can elect to have a digital payment, in which case we need an application to facilitate it. Then we have the new one, which is sort of where the tech's headed, which is a reverse vending machine. It's basically an autonomous site. It's a shipping container-like structure with a machine in there. When you put the container in, it scans the barcode, verifies it's an eligible product, verifies the dimensions and the mass, and then it will accept the container. But it's a bit of the old Neville Bartos rule. There's no cash here on the machine, so it needs an ability to be able to provide an unregistered transaction. So what it will do in its place is provide a voucher, which as per the contract must be able to be redeemed at a convenient location for goods, services or cash, which really means Coles or Woolworths. So that's printed ticket, you take it in the store and it will give you cash or a credit against the goods. And the last point is we're obligated to provide all the bins and trucks and services to collect those containers from the redemption points and then transport them and sell them for remanufacturing. So that's a long way of getting to why we're here today, but basically it's around talking about the IT applications that we need to support the operational functions of the scheme. So with the consumer, we need to be able to record their identity to quite a low level, and then facilitate digital payments. There's a number of different ways. We'll go through it in more detail in the next slide. And then similarly with the redemption points, as they recover the containers from the public, they need to record how many they've recovered and of what type, because there's requirements on reporting all the different product segments, which drives different pricing outcomes for the suppliers. And also there's an obligation to provide a weekly acknowledgement that what they've entered in the app is true and correct, record any safety or environmental incidents, and ensure that their opening hours have been met. And lastly, again, as an accountant, it's important that it integrates with our finance and accounting package, and all of our other operational systems such as the run sheets, etc. So just a bit more detail. So on the consumer application, we need to register the consumer's identity. And again, this is a bit of a change for us because we're a B2B business. This is a B2C thing. So all of a sudden we're dealing with many, many more accounts and people and issues and challenges that we're not used to working with. Once we've got that registration, we can record a bank account for settlement of the EFT payments, which can be either via bank account BSB or Pay ID. There's a high focus on social enrichment through the scheme. So there's a ability for charities and mostly charities to register as a donation partner, and what you can do is stipulate a charity as your preferred payment option, and rather than the containers being redeemed against Tim O'Donnell, they'll go against the Red Cross or Blood Bank or whomever you've selected. In order to make that connection between the customer and the machine or the app, there's a requirement to put a barcode there that can be scanned to pass that piece of information between the two devices. So we estimated there should be about 200,000 users in our zone at end state. So pleasingly, we're at about over 100,000 already, and I think we're about 11 months in. Mind you, the app did go live ahead of the scheme commencement, so we're well on track with that. The redemption point application, so that's got to gather the container counts by commodity, transfer that to the cloud. It has to have the ability to scan the barcode on the consumer's phone and register that to make an EFT payment if that's the customer's choice, or else it's an anonymous transaction and goes through the cash pass. Fat fingers, so again, as an accountant, we have a lot of problems with truck drivers punching in wrong numbers and all sorts of things like that. So there's quite a few validations on the app around making sure the numbers entered are correct. Similarly, checking GPS and times of entries, because basically this app pays cash. So we wanted quite a bit of control around that as well. And lastly, whenever we go to pick up these containers, we need to pass that number to the Visy truck to take them away for remanufacturing. So that needs to be maintained through the redemption point application as well. And lastly, the integration. So it needs to integrate with our truck servicing application. So when it passes the container count, that's where it goes to. It needs to interface with SAP, which is our ERP for all of our financial payments, accounting packages and reporting that goes downstream from there. The RVM does not go directly into the app, so it needs to be able to talk directly to the cloud and pass the same information, although it's not done by a human, it's done by the machine. All the banking transactions need to be called with ANZ, so again, there's lots and lots and lots of very small amounts, which is quite different for how we normally do business. And similarly, we need the ability to produce a barcode, which then needs to be written into a database that then can be queried by the point of sale system at Coles or Woolworths, and then some checks and balances around making sure there's integrity of that as we go through the process as well. And last but not least, there's a whole lot of compliance reporting that we're obligated to make for the state government, so our applications needed to meet all of those objectives. So key decision criteria. So obviously, certainty of outcome was very important for us. So it would have been quite embarrassing if our first B2C, we didn't have an app, so it had to be absolutely positively delivered. We had a very short time frame to deliver it in, so we needed to be very comfortable that the solution that we implemented was able to be delivered in the time frame we had available. And again, as an accountant, it had to be on budget. So integration, it had to integrate with all of our systems, and again with the time frame, we needed to be certain that all of our obligations to the government could be met with that integration to our legacy systems, be it operational or financial. And then control. So there's a lot of information generated through this scheme. There's a lot of data. So we wanted to have control over that. We needed to integrate with our systems, and we wanted to be nimble as well. So it's a business we haven't entered before. We sat down at a whiteboard and mapped stuff out. There were always going to be things we missed. So we needed to be able to agilely, if that's a word, be able to amend things as we got past turning the scheme on. So when we assessed all of these criteria against the options we had, so we had sort of an off-the-shelf option that was going to be a bit inflexible insofar as owning the data and controlling the data. It had issues with integrating with our other systems, and we were concerned around doing that in the time frame. So when we look back over the journey, so again, we've got quite a long-standing history with Appian. Some of the applications we needed to integrate were Appian applications as well, so it made a lot of sense to go with Appian. And the grey beard's not from Appian worries, that's I think it's operations and other stuff, but yeah, we were very comfortable that we were going to get there. So onto the project timeline. So I won't talk through all of this in detail, but I think the critical piece here is that we went from 8 months from kick-off to a project delivery. So we literally had, I think, both teams from Visy and Appian locked away in rooms in our IT head office in Coburg. A lot of post-it notes didn't make it. But we did document it all. All of the edge cases, everything was kind of written through. The two teams worked together very closely. All of the challenges and tweaks and modifications were done. We had 2 Appian teams running, which I think helped with really getting this done quickly. And we made it to getting the application ready to deploy via the App Store ahead of scheme commencement and begin onboarding all of the donation partners to make sure that they were correctly eligible, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the last point here, we engaged Appian Hypercare as well post-commencement to make sure that we had the support for anything that was unexpected, given it was a big bang turn on all on one day. So just what does the app look like? So just a few screen grabs. So the left one here is what it looks like when you sign in. So that's my zone ID. So if anyone would like to donate their containers to that one, you can take a copy of it. Joking. You can choose the pay ID. So on the second left screen there, it'll show the options there. So you can choose bank transfer, which will allow you to put in your bank account, BSB, or similarly your pay ID. You can donate it to a charity. So the third tile there just gives a list of charities, and there's an ability there to have promoted, so we can rotate those through over time. So that can be matched to certain calendar events. So like for argument's sake, if you had Good Friday appeal over Easter, you can prioritise certain charities at certain points in time. They're all grouped, they're all tagged with segments. So if you want to search for animal welfare or health or environment, you can bring up those charities that may be eligible to you, and you can choose that and it will pay to that site. We have the option for e-voucher, so the machine will render a printed ticket. You can similarly elect to have an e-voucher, which is a digital rendering of the same thing, works exactly the same way. 2FA the world, everything you do on here requires two-factor authentication, so that should provide security around changing bank account details, etc., etc. A little bit of functionality we've got there on the bottom, so there's a container eligibility key on the very bottom of the first tile, which then will open up another window that you can scan the barcode on your container. If you take a photo of that with your phone, it will tell you whether it is or isn't eligible, so that you won't take your Queensland wine bottles into Victoria. The refund point application, so this is from the point of view of the depots and the over-the-counters. So the first screen there is when they log in. It'll show the count of containers that they've received since their last collection by commodity group. When they enter a transaction on the second screen here, they can either type in the number of glass, plastic, aluminium, etc., etc. You can toggle up or down with the plus or minus keys. This one's to a consumer account, so you'll see the names registered up the top there, and when you push next, it will digitally pay to whatever payment source you've selected on the consumer app. You can see there in the centre of the screen it's got a standard or a grid tile. So this is an example of something that we kind of found once we turned the scheme on. Most people come in with one bag or list of containers, and they would just say, count them out and type them in. Some people might have 3 bags or whatever, and then you end up with problems where people are either entering 3 transactions, which they're not supposed to do because there's tests on the total, or else the site is writing them on a piece of paper and adding them up, which is room for error. So if you toggle that to grid, it will open up a table and you can type in the 3 different bags or how many bags you have, and when you push save, it does the aggregate function, takes that out of it. So that's an example of something that we've sort of found and changed over the journey. I've no doubt there'll be many more. But it's not make or break, it's just a refinement and improvement, and these are the types of issues that we wanted to be able to resolve live and really quickly once we turned it on. The third tile there is a donation transaction there. So that would make the same payment accept to a donation partner, and it will also provide the tax receipt so you can claim that on your tax, which gets emailed to you. So all the functionality is built in there. And the last one here we have is just a weekly confirmation report. So there's a task that's generated each week for the site to say we acknowledge the number of containers we've recovered is true and accurate, and similarly that we've had no safety or environmental issues. And if we've not been open our requisite hours, there's an opportunity for them to publish that in there. So in summation, very happy. These are all of our machines awaiting deployment, so they're all built out in Hazelwood. So a lot of work's gone into all of this, but it was really pleasing to have all of the applications done on time to the requisite amount of quality. The integration with all of our core systems has been excellent, so we've had no problems with all of our reporting obligations and payments, and again, on budget. So thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.